Good morning, boys and girls. I'm so glad to be with you today for Story Time with Miss Scarlett. I have a great book for us today, and I hope you're going to enjoy it. It's called The Parable About the King by Beth Moore, and it's illustrated by Beverly Warren. So I'm going to begin to read this with you today, and then we're going to talk about it in just a little bit. Once upon a time, a young princess became angry with her father, the king. The king had required her obedience to clean her room, but she had countless servants. Why should she pick up after herself? I know what to do, the princess said to herself. I'll teach everyone a lesson. I'll run away from home and leave my room messed up just like this. She searched through her dresser drawers for old clothing, pitching what she did not want on the floor. Finding the clothing she wanted to dress up in, she disguised herself as one of the village girls. Then she quickly slipped out of the castle's secret door. The princess knew her father, the king, would not discover her missing for several hours because he was attending to important business. Princess. Walking a short distance, the princess soon found herself in a neighborhood lined with markets and merchants. On a narrow back street, she met a group of children playing stickball. She thought to herself, they are having much more fun than I ever have. I am tired of being a princess. I shall be like them. It wasn't long before the children asked her to play stickball with them. She was so happy. The princess quickly caught on to their game. She elbowed whoever got in her way, just like them. She cursed when she missed the ball, just like them. And when she fell, plopped, she fell straight into the mud, just like them. Suddenly, a young girl appeared at the corner of the street. She called to the children, "Come, hurry! Something really big is happening on Main Street." Sticks flew into the air and the children ran toward Main Street. The princess was quite proud of herself, for she could run very fast, just like them. When the children reached Main Street, they reached a crowd of people who were oohing and aahing over something. The children shoved and pushed their way through the crowd only to meet the stares of the finely dressed men and women standing at the front of the group. "Go away, you filthy children," one woman said. Incensed, the princess said, "I'm no filthy child. I am a prin—" Her words trailed off. She used to be a princess. Now I'm just like them. With new resolve, she began to elbow her way through the crowd again, purposely getting mud on the hems of the fine dresses and skirts. "It's no use," one of the boys finally said. "We can't get to the front of this crowd. Hurry, let's go climb that tree over there." The children hurried to the tree and, just like monkeys, scurried up to perch on the branches. All the children managed to climb the tree, except for the princess. Trailing behind them, she reassured herself, "I can climb this tree. I can, because I'm just like them." As she pulled her way to the second branch, a small limb caught the threads of her skirt and threw her off balance. Not being able to catch herself, she tumbled out of the tree and fell to the ground with a thump. The adults turned around and peered at her with disgust. The children in the tree laughed and yelled at her, "Get up here, quick! It's coming! It's coming!" She didn't know what was coming, nor did she care at that particular moment. Humiliated and bruised from her fall, she wanted to cry, but she was just like them, and they certainly wouldn't cry, so she cursed instead. Determined, the princess finally made her way up the tree and settled insecurely on a lower branch. "What are we looking for, anyway?" she asked. "It's the king," yelled the other kids. "Don't you know a king when you see one?" They sneered at her. She slowly pulled herself up to the next branch and stretched to see the king. An envoy of dignitaries stood beside a lavished coach. When the door opened, out stepped the king, so tall, so dignified, so royal. "Hail, His Majesty the King," an aide announced. The crowd responded, "Long live the king!" The dignitaries dropped to one knee. The crowd bowed before him. Only the king was left standing. Then one of the boys in the tree whispered to the group, "Hey, we have the perfect shot from here. Let's throw our best spitballs right in his face." Horror struck the princess's heart. "You can't do that," she pleaded. "Why not?" the boys demanded. "Because he's the king," she said. "So what? Big deal," they said as they began to throw spitballs at the king. "Stop," the princess cried. "Stop, please. That's my father." The tears she had so valiantly held back earlier now spilled down her cheeks. "Sure, and my dad is Abraham," they mocked her. "No, I mean it. It's true. The king is my father," she pleaded. But the children just laughed at her. "Look at you. You're just like us," they sneered. "You don't have a father." The princess looked at her father just in time to see him wipe something from his face. He looked up into the tree as the children yelled and cursed at him. Indescribable shame filled her heart. She was sure her father had seen her, but maybe, just maybe, he hadn't recognized her. The princess jumped out of the tree and began to run. As she did, the children started to throw their spitballs at her. The princess began to run back toward the palace. She ran and ran, sobbing every step of the way. Stopping to catch her breath, the princess suddenly became aware of her stinging elbows and knees. She was skinned and bleeding from the fall, and she began to cry even harder. Her heart sank, and she felt alone and very frightened. Making her way slowly back to the palace, she discovered, to her horror, that the secret door was now locked. She ran to the next door, but it was locked too, as was the next and the next door. "Oh no," she cried. "I am locked out and I have no place to go. The palace is no longer my home." The princess knew that only the front door remained unlocked. "I can't possibly use the front door," she thought. "Everyone will know how foolish I have been. Everyone will look at me, and I look just like them." So she waited and waited, trying desperately to think of some way to get out of this terrible mess. Finally, too sore and too hungry to think any longer, she gave in and headed for the front door. With torn clothes, filthy hands, and a tear-streaked face, she lifted her hand and knocked once, slowly, timidly. Before she could muster the courage to knock again, the door cracked open. Hanging her head in shame, she could see only his feet, but she knew instantly that they were his feet. It was him, her dad, the king. She fell at his feet and cried, "I'm so sorry, Daddy. I'm so ashamed of what I have done." Gently, the king knelt down beside her and pulled her into his strong, comforting arms. "Come here, my child, my princess," he said. "But I'm not a princess anymore. I'm just like them," she sobbed. "Ah, my child," he said, "you may have acted like them, but you are not one of them. You are mine, and you will never be happy until you accept both the privilege and the responsibility that goes with belonging to me." That night, after he had dressed her wounds, he tucked her into her soft bed and kissed her good night. He had even helped her to clean the mess she had left in her room. As she settled into the soft quilts, she thought about how much she liked being a princess, the daughter of a king. As the king walked out the room, the dim night The dim light softly illuminated his royal robe, which was now smudged with dirt. Tears filled the princess's eyes. "Look what I've done to the king's robe." "Never again," she whispered, apologizing to the king. Sensing her broken heart, the king turned and spoke softly. "Yes, my child, there will be other times, but I will open the door every time you knock, and I will always love you forever and again." And this story has no end. So that was the book, The Parable of About the King by Beth Moore. So I don't know if you saw yourself in this story, but I saw myself in this story. You know, we've talked about parables before and how Jesus liked to use parables to teach about himself and about God. And this is another parable. It is a lesson, it's a story that teaches us something about God. So, who is the king in the story? The king is obviously Jesus, it's God. And who is the prince or the princess? In this story, it's a princess, but it could also be a prince. So, who is that? It's every one of us who are a child of the king, which is someone who has trusted Jesus to forgive them of their sins and made him boss of their life. He is their savior and their Lord. He is the King of Kings. And we are his prince or princess, and we are his child. And so often we want to be his child when things are good, but when things are bad, we want to throw off the responsibility of being his child. And we just want to go do things our way, just as the princess in this story did. We want to live like other boys and girls or other moms or dads live because we think it's always better for them, or we think maybe some things are better. And so we want to run away from the responsibility we have as the child of a king. And we find ourselves doing things that were never made for us to do, claiming to be things that are be people that we were not made to be. And what happens is we wind up, those things we do that hurt and break God's heart, those are called sin. And it makes us all dirty and it breaks our relationship with the King, with Jesus. But just like in our story today, when the princess realized that she really was a princess and she belonged to the king, she ran back home, even hurt and banged up and bruised. And who was there to meet her? Who opened the door to the palace? It was the king, her daddy. And he wrapped her up, he cleaned her up, he helped her clean up the mess, and he tucked her in and he reminded her that he loved her and that he forgave her. You know what, boys and girls, when we mess up, when we sin, and we realize we've messed up, we can always tell Jesus we are sorry. And we want to take that responsibility. It is very important that we want to say we're sorry to Jesus, and we want to know that he is going to wrap us up with his love and his forgiveness. And his word promises that he will always love us, just as the king promised the princess, you're going to mess up again. But guess what? Every time I'm going to love you. That's the best part to me of this story, is that I can be reminded that when I mess up, Jesus forgives me. He is my king. He is my daddy. And he's going to love me when I'm doing the right thing, and he's going to love me when I'm not making the right choices. But I can always turn to him and tell him I'm sorry and ask him to help me do the right thing, and he promises he will always be there. Today's verse that I want to share with you is from Matthew chapter 25, verse 34, and it's the last part of that verse. And it says, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world." Matthew 25, 34b. You know, boys and girls, we are children of the King. We were created by the Creator, the King. And those of us who have chosen to trust him, we are the child of the King, and we have a great responsibility. We also have a great privilege of being his child and knowing that he will always love us and always forgive us. I hope you've had a great morning and that God will continue just to press upon you how much He loves you. And I just want you to know how much I love you and I miss you and I look forward to seeing you. Hey, we're having drive-in church this week. I hope you'll join us at 9 or 11. Miss Scarlett will be looking for you and your family. Have a great day. Bye.